That's right, Johnny Silverhand. Had his crowning moment about 50 years ago.
Meanwhile,
why do we need to give money to taxes and social security? That money needs to go to fun stuff, like chicken nuggies and milkshakes. Milkshakes are good. Chicken nuggies are good. That's the truth.
Whenever I'm asked, what are your favourite games? The standard comes to mind like the Gears of War Trilogy, the Red Dead Redemption series, the Batman Arkham Games, or yes, even Days Gone. But if I think about an RPG, a game where I can sink an unhealthy amount of hours actively getting deep into the world and lore, yeah, there is the standard like Fallout and Skyrim, but for me, it's got to be one of the RPGs that was more hyped than Avengers Endgame in CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077. Now, yes, we all know it launched a bit average, especially for those of you on older consoles, but Cyberpunk has changed a fair bit over the past 5 years since it released. Holy shit, Cyberpunk is 5 years old. Anyways, being a fan of the game and seeing as I've covered it a couple of times already, from its original release to updates to the Phantom Liberty DLC, I thought I'd go back and take another look at Cyberpunk 5 years later to see how it holds up as a timeless RPG with the likes of Skyrim and Fallout 4, but also to answer how does it hold up 5 years later? Is it really that good? And if you've played it before, maybe why you should go back to it again. Now, I'll be talking about the general story, gameplay, positives, negatives, looking at the Phantom Liberty DLC, but also how does Cyberpunk handle out on the go on a portable device? And I will flag where there are spoilers as well, as I've previously covered Cyberpunk and people were upset that I spoiled a moment in the prologue, fair enough. But for whatever reason, if you've not played Cyberpunk and you want to know absolutely nothing about it, yeah, pick up a copy of it. I will flag where there are spoilers coming up later in the video too, but for those of you who want a yes or no answer right out of the gate if Cyberpunk is good, well, why do you think I've covered the game 4 times if it were crap? Avoiding spoilers, the general core story is about your character, known as V, surviving a deadly virus that's eating away and killing you. Yes, it is a oversimplification for it, but the story starts with you making your character, which is what you'd expect for most in-depth RPGs, and depending on your choice during character creation will determine how your V's story starts. Whether that is as a nomad living and moving from place to place, a street kid with V growing up on the rough and tough streets of Night City, having connections with gangs but also having street smarts, or your V can come from the corporate life, having knowledge of large corporations, coming from cutthroat business dealings and top floor penthouses. Depending on what origins you pick for your V determines the start of the game and gives you a bit of a taste of the world of Night City. But following, say, the initial 20 minutes of V's introduction following your choices, V then sets out to make a name for themselves, to become a legend of Night City alongside your best mate, or Choom, in Jackie Wells. Now, you find yourself doing jobs for city contacts, starting with finding and saving a high-profile hostage from a gang, before then having a chance at the big leagues with a major heist on a large corporation known as Arasaka. The end of this heist is the end of Act 1, and from here the world and map of Night City opens up to the player, and the story really begins. Now, the heist goes wrong, you witness the murder of the CEO of Arasaka, V gets blamed for it and then targeted by Arasaka, and on top of this as well, V gets sick and essentially needs to find a cure as a cybernetic implant in his body is slowly killing him. We're then introduced to Keanu Reeves' character of Johnny Silverhands experiencing moments of his life, and without going into spoilers, Johnny Silverhands is a little similar in styling to, say, the Joker from Arkham Knight, but well, we don't play as Batman. Act 2 onwards in the game acts towards sort of you finding a cure and saving your life, with the standard of being introduced to characters who can potentially help you out, but only if you help them first. You'll work with nomads in the desert, you'll get revenge for friends being kidnapped, you'll try and find the person who created this virus that is killing you, and even a fantastic side mission working alongside police, taking down cyber psychos, and doing random jobs for this fucking clown.
clowns are funny.
The overall base story can take about 20 hours or so to finish, and that is solely if you beeline the main story. and the DLC Phantom Liberty adds about 15 to 20 hours on top of that as well. Also, Phantom Liberty is a story expansion with Idris fucking Elba, and yeah, Keanu Reeves and Idris Elba are in Cyberpunk, and it's just as cool as it sounds. But the DLC gives you different options for how V's story ends, because, well, Cyberpunk has multiple endings. So, for this playthrough though, I decided to make a brand new character, because my first playthrough when the game first released was a Nomad, whose ending for that character was so perfect, I retired them. The second playthrough was Corpo, seeing as I've got a corporate job myself, and it seemed like the next pick for me. So this time around, I decided to create a Street Kid and see how that works, because I've never done Street Kid before, and I decided to more so focus on a playstyle or skill tree of that of the Netrunner. And speaking of Netrunners, the general gameplay is a first-person RPG. The core gameplay and combat is a first-person shooter, but there are melee weapons if you prefer not to use firearms. But you'll also have the option or playstyle as a Netrunner, being able to hack into and control items like cameras, turrets, vehicles. You can fry enemy brains, you can use TV or appliances to ping nearby enemies. Hell, as a Netrunner, you can complete missions without actually entering a building in some instances. Now that's just one of the playstyles you can opt to go down as V, because there are multiple skill trees giving you heaps of options to use. For example, in my original playthrough when Cyberpunk launched, I did my normal, let's make a Han Solo styled character where I just focus on talking out of situations and only using pistols. For my second playthrough in my corporate character, I focused on bladed weapons and had the Mantis blades rather than hacking into items, and focused on being able to slow down time using the Sandevistan. Basically, your character can then move at superhuman speed, but if you go down this playstyle, you can't hack into anything. So for the Street Kid, I went, fuck it, try playing as a Netrunner, play with some stealth mechanics here and there rather than going in loud, using silenced weapons and throwable daggers, which honestly, being quiet and using stealth weapons was actually pretty damn cool, because this was the first time I was trying it. But if I needed to, I could go in loud because I'd carry a shotgun. And that's one of the reasons to have a couple of different playthroughs when you're playing Cyberpunk, because while yes, the story plot points and the events are the same, missions change depending on how you play them. Now, there's one mission in Act 2, and I won't go into it, but it's inside of a derelict shopping mall. Now, I recall in my first playthrough, I tried to sneak and I just went up going loud. In my second playthrough as a Corpo, I just went in as quickly as I could because I could slow down time and just use my bladed weapons. But as a Netrunner, I focused on stealth, being able to hack into items that I couldn't use last time because in my Corpo playthrough, I was slowing down time and I couldn't hack into things. But I got through the entire mission, besides the required boss fight, without being seen, and that was pretty cool.
That's so lame.
So lame that it's cool.
No.
Okay, so it's a first-person shooter, there's guns, pretty standard for a game set in the year 2077. But there's bladed weapons, there's blunt weapons like hammers and pipes and baseball bats if that's more of your jam, but then we have additional weapons, buffs, and abilities called cyberware, where in the world of Cyberpunk you'll find that most people in the world have cybernetic implants where you can answer your phone in your head. You can hack into computers with a data cable coming out of your wrist, but you can also swap out parts of your body, like your eyes for example, for better eyes. Now, by visiting a Reprodoc in the world, you can upgrade V by giving them more protection and armor by installing protective plates, by giving them the option to double jump by adding cyberware to your legs, or built-in weapons like gorilla arms so you can beat people to death, forearm rocket launchers for some quick and cool explosions, or the iconic Mantis blades. Think of Cyberpunk a bit of a merge between, say, Fallout with its skill trees and abilities, as well as Grand Theft Auto with its open world and its crudeness, as well as you can buy and drive vehicles around the city, and its shooting mechanics are actually pretty damn solid too. Sure, the game isn't made to be a soul shooter like, say, Doom or Wolfenstein, but the combat here is actually pretty damn solid. Speaking of Fallout though, and well, just a little bit of Doom I guess, but the general combat overall using weapons can be pretty meaty, where you can easily remove limbs, blow chunks out of enemies' heads, and it's pretty damn satisfying using a ranged throwing dagger to quietly take out an enemy. There is also a small element of maybe Hitman, where you can grab an enemy from behind and either kill them or knock them out and place their bodies into dumpsters or bins to hide them. Where enemy detection is a little bit like, say, the Far Cry games, where you have a detection gauge above the enemy that will slowly fill, and from that the guard or the enemy is then aware of you. Now, being an RPG, there's an inventory system where you can swap out your weapons, you can change V's clothes, you can modify and craft weapons. Now, honestly, at first, I didn't really go much into the crafting space, as I always found a better weapon off the ground. Or I was given weapons from completing side missions, but then I learnt about the crafting of new hacking options, like causing enemies to turn into cyber psychos and attack anything nearby. But upgrading your weapons or cybernetics is actually relatively easy and straightforward once you wrap your head around it. You just need the relevant currency or materials for it, and materials are pretty easy to find from just playing the game or by scrapping weapons or items you no longer want. But speaking of currency, in the world of Night City and Cyberpunk, the currency is called Eurodollars, and it can be used for purchasing new weapons, buying new cars, new clothes, and for the first time in this playthrough, I gave a crack at purchasing apartments. And I gotta say, it's a pretty cool mechanic, as not only is it somewhere for just you, as you know, if you're wanting to get in depth with the world, to just relax and soak in the fantastic city of Night City that CD Projekt Red has brought to life, but it also works with a recent update to the game in dating, where you can bring back one of your game's romance options back to your apartment to dance, to chat on the couch, or to jump in the shower. Through the story though, you'll have the opportunities to romance 4 characters, and depending on what decisions you make as V in your character creation and what direction you go down, depends on what romance options are available. A little similar to that of, say, the Mass Effect trilogy, but rather than having one intimate scene towards the end of the game, there is now an option to bring them back to your apartment and just spend time together. And while it is kind of pointless, it does immerse you further in the world, I will say. Now, as I mentioned too, you can drive cars around in the world from Cyberpunk from motorbikes, which are actually kind of realistic. Now, I've always wanted to purchase a motorbike, my wife won't let me, I also have no place to put a motorbike, but it kind of gives me that fix of this is what it feels like riding a motorbike, especially when you're driving in first person. But you also have sports cars, armored trucks, weaponized vehicles that kind of made me felt like Batman in some instances. Now, you'll start off with a pretty boring car before you have the option to do side missions that will unlock more cars for you. For example, you can complete Claire's street racing storyline and you'll be rewarded a car from there. Naturally too, each car handles differently because the iconic hero car for V is relatively fast and it grips the road fairly well, where the Ken Block inspired car drifts like a Nintendo Switch Joy-Con with ease. But now let's talk about what Cyberpunk gets right. Firstly, let's get the obvious out of the way. Cyberpunk is a fantastic looking game. For a 5-year-old game, I honestly can't think of many games that looked this good that released recently. Characters' eyes aren't just staring at you lifelessly. I think most, if not all, NPCs I interacted with were uniquely designed, voiced, and graphically impressive. And when there are multiple characters talking and you're just, say, a passenger in that conversation, it all feels natural. There are even small attention to detail moments that I never noticed in my past 5 years of playing Cyberpunk. Fuck, the graffiti in this game has texture and light bounces off the paintwork. Like, that shit's impressive. During one mission where you're working with Pan Am, she gets shot while she's trying to fix a turret. Now, later in the game, you can see that Pan Am actually has a scar on her hip from where she got shot. And there's never been another cutscene or moment in a game that's made me as hungry as when Jackie is waiting for you to come out of your apartment. Hell, the sound design as well complements the food a little bit as well, because at the start of this Street Kid introduction, there is a portly fella who's eating a greasy burger, and you can hear the chewing if you've got a set of headphones on, and it's really damn impressive. The combat and the general gameplay, while it does take a little bit of time to get used to, not much, just a little bit, especially if you're following a class or a combat style that you're not used to playing, it can be properly impressive. Using katanas or swords to hack off enemy limbs, shotguns to turn heads into crushed watermelons, or the option to hack into enemies and cause them to turn the weapons on themselves is brutal. On top of that, with the Ripper Dock and the arm weapons like the Mantis Blades, then the forearm rockets, the Gorilla Hands, the Monowire, there's always fun to be had, especially in the combat area. Hell, if you follow the Netrunner path and focus on hacking into items, not only can you basically instantly complete some missions, but it can also give you massive advantages. In the racing side quest mission with the bartender Claire, you can hack into other races' vehicles and activate their emergency brakes, causing them to come to a hard stop, or even cause the vehicles to flat explode. And I gotta say, I always had a laugh where if I messed up a corner during the race and someone caught up to me, by hacking into their car and just activating their brakes was always pretty funny. While most open worlds are properly impressive and are based and set around their general theme like a post-nuclear Fallout Boston or the world of Tamriel, the world of Night City feels like it has also some fantastic biomes. The general city itself feels like a merge of Blade Runner, Judge Dredd, bit of Fifth Elements in there as well, where you can actually then leave the city and go into the city outskirts and you will find general neighborhoods. There'll be a Beverly Hills style mansion on the cliff faces.
That's LA for you.
Trailer parks, large garbage dumps.
Exactly. You're in LA.
Amusement parks, beach town cities that feel like LA, but they're run by gangs.
He just won't stop with the social commentary.
But what I'm getting at is, the environment isn't just a futuristic city that's your only location. There is so much to explore and see, and the main mission and core campaign barely scratch the surface of what Night City has to offer. Now, speaking of missions, the core story, pretty damn good, don't get me wrong, but the side missions that you'll be offered from criminal gangs or fixers, if you will, as well as your companions and romance interests offering you missions, are properly entertaining. In my previous playthroughs of Cyberpunk, I never actually did Claire's racing mission, and by the time you get to the last race, you're given an option where I actually didn't know which path I wanted to follow, and that can be said for more than a few side missions in Cyberpunk. Working with the character of Judy and her missions, I actually didn't know that her story wraps up with this really cool scuba portion, and I'd never experienced that before. Where most core story and mission campaigns as well have a action set piece that feel like they're inspired by movies. Now, during one mission when you're working with the Nomads and Pan Am, you end up stealing a tank, and that mission had a bit of a Fast and Furious vibe to it. What also strangely worked for me, and it might be because I'm a moron, but the more I replayed the campaign, as this was my third playthrough, the better the story got. It kind of feels like you're watching a movie again, and some missions and characters hit harder for me now. Now, during Act 2, you'll have multiple mission paths to follow, which you can tackle any way you want. You can help Pan Am, you can work with the evil corporation you were trying to steal from during Act 1's heist, Arasaka, but I think the more involved I got in the world, the more involved I got in side missions, accepting and replying to random text messages and calls that I got while I played Cyberpunk, the more involved I felt and more connected I felt to my character. But what also really worked just as a creative, fun way to play, but also as a in-world explanation for things like health bars, hacking, ammo counters, and more, is cyberware. The option to have swords come out of your forearms, forearm rocket launchers, being able to jump higher or double jump, all from implants into your character, as well as your HUD. You've got cybernetic implants or replacement eyes, and that's how we have a HUD in the game. Better handling for weapons, add a grip onto your hand. Connect your brain and hardware to smart weapons for easier targeting. What I'm getting at is there's cyberware implants that offer new gameplay options, and everything just kind of makes sense in the world. When you want to heal a certain amount of damage, you can install a blood pump into your body, and it all works and makes sense. CD Projekt Red have also frequently been updating Cyberpunk as well with some good quality of life changes, but also some just nice additions too. Firstly, you can have your V go into a mirror into your apartment and customize what they look like. So if you want to change your hair, add some new scars, or change your eyes, what they visually look like, you can. During one point early in the game, you get a new set of eyes. It's part of the story progression point. And when I got to this point in the game, in the story, I then went to my apartment and changed V's eyes out physically what they looked like, to sort of help immerse myself in the world. CD Projekt Red have also added new vehicles to purchase. You can change the colour of your vehicles, so if you don't want to be driving around in that traditional black and gold look for the hero car of V, you can change it to whatever color you want. You can also scan other vehicles and find some rare paint jobs to actually apply to your cars if you own the same car. As I mentioned, you can also purchase apartments. You can bring your romance options back to your place to hang out to further immerse yourself in the world. And yeah, there's even some Cyberpunk Edge Runners content here too that CD Projekt Red added into the game, and it's great. By far though, one of my personal favourite things about Cyberpunk 2077 is the radio and music. Now, similar to Grand Theft Auto, there's a variety of radio stations to listen to, depending on your music taste. But for me, anytime I got into a car, or again, with an update that CD Projekt Red provided, you can listen to the radio when you're out walking around in the world, and any chance I got, I was listening to Moro Rock, for two great reasons. Firstly, the radio DJ of Moro Rock is Mike Pondsmith, the creator of Cyberpunk, and the dude's voice is like a work of art. I could honestly listen to him narrate a damn phone book. But why Moro Rock is also great, besides Mike Pondsmith, is the band created for Cyberpunk and linked to the character of Johnny Silverhand in Samurai. I honestly can't think of music that has been created for a game that hits so damn well. Now obviously Cyberpunk has a score and theme, but an in-game, in-world band that has proper slapping songs, not just one song, but all of them. Damn dude. The logo, the in-game and real-world merchandise you can get, my dudes, even the album art, it all works. And yeah, in the real world, Samurai is the band Refused, and yes, we've had real musicians and bands make music for games, like 9 Inch Nails for Quake for example, but this is a fictional band made for this game, using real artists, and dude, it fucking rocked. There are some things though that didn't really work for me in Cyberpunk. Now, in case anyone does need to know, these are my personal issues with the great game and world that CD Projekt Red have made, and they might not be issues for everyone. Firstly, in this futuristic world of Cyberpunk, a game that, depending on your choices, even opens up with flying vehicles before we're literally thrown one in our face when we rescue a hostage in the opening mission, we see the Trauma team rock up in a vehicle that physically looks like it's been pulled from The Fifth Element. It is a great scene. Sadly, there aren't any options for flying vehicles in Cyberpunk. Now sure, on PC you can mod the game, and I've seen some great ideas of turning cars into flying cars that look like they've been pulled out of Back to the Future Part 2, which that alone is a great idea. But the option or idea for not adding flying vehicles into the game, even in the end of the game as a progression item, seems kinda off. Like, fair enough if the developers didn't want to have you unlock flying cars, say before the point of no return mission, but having them in the game at all seems a bit weird, especially as they show rich people, trauma teams, and the elite force of Max Tech use them. Now, what still doesn't sit right with me is one of the plot points from Act 1 in the heist. Now, I'm not going to go too much into spoilers, but if you want to skip ahead just in case, maybe move to the timestamp you see on screen now. But when we break into a Arasaka penthouse and witness old man Saburo Arasaka get strangled by his son, Yorinobu, Yorinobu then locks down this hotel by saying his father has been poisoned and proceeds to leave the room.
I don't believe you.
We then try to escape, we get caught and chased by Arasaka security, and we as V get blamed for the murder. Now the story moves on where we as V try to clear our name and save ourselves from this virus that's slowly killing us. But old man Arasaka was strangled, and his son Yorinobu reports that he's been poisoned. When now, yes, this is a world where corporations control everything, but I think people would notice a bruising around the throat that looks like fucking hands. And if someone were poisoned, the next couple of questions would be, what did they eat, what did they drink, what did they touch? If the police weren't involved in a high-profile murder, then internal Arasaka security and everyone would be asking the same thing. What I also found a little bit weird as well was that V can have a heap of new pieces of cyberware installed. Eyes, legs, weapons mounted to your arms, but the only piece that physically alters what V looks like is the arm weapons, where we've got characters like Johnny Silverhands, Atom Smasher, even NPCs who have cybernetic limbs and attachments, where it could have been cool that if we equip cyberware, it physically changes what our V looks like. If we equip more armor, buffing V's total health and damage pool, it makes him bigger as a character. There's a great Netrunner character that you meet in Phantom Liberty in the DLC, and her hands are robotic, as is the whole back of her body, and it could have been cool if this was an option you could have if you were playing as a Netrunner. It's also worth noting, not really a negative, but it could be for some, is that Cyberpunk is the modern equivalent of, say, Crysis for a PC, in that it can be a damn strain on your computer depending on what hardware and settings you have active. Now, I was running this on a 4090 with 64GB of RAM, and all of my internal fans were set to max speed, including my CPU water cooler. Now, I still had to keep my PC case open to keep the PC, or keep the system, cold, because I've got lights set up to warn me if my PC gets too hot, and red means stop what you're doing and see what's going on. And with everything running on max graphics, on the Psycho graphic system and ray tracing and everything turned on, the PC was sitting at yellow to orange color, so that's a thing to note. Finally though, at least in negatives, at least before I get to the spoiler section of the video, but Cyberpunk does have a few small bugs here and there. Thankfully, nothing game-breaking. I think in my 70 hours of gameplay, I had one crash. I noticed that random items on shelves would just explode like papers. I had one moment where all the NPCs and vehicles just disappeared right in front of me. I even loaded an old save to see if it was just a random bug, and it happened again from that exact same street, and it was a bit weird. I also noticed that every Ripper dock in the game has the exact same operating table, like the cracked leather, the color of the leather. And it could have been cool if you went to a Ripper dock in the financial district or different areas in Night City, they had different chairs. Like if you say went to the Nomads, their chairs were scrapped together from stolen parts. But one bug I noticed that appeared in both PC and playing out on the go was a thick cloud covering the city where I could barely see what was in front of me. Kind of like fog or a sandstorm. And it only happened if I went, say, into the map or inventory system and then came back out into the game. And speaking of playing on the go, now how does this graphic intensive game run on portables? Well, thanks to my mates at MSI Australia, they lent me the MSI Claw 8 AI Plus to play games out on the go and add that section into my reviews. But question is, can you play Cyberpunk on the go? 100%. It is the easiest game to set up and play. Cyberpunk has its own preset graphic settings. Now, just like in some of my previous recent reviews, I not only played Cyberpunk out at my local pub, but I also played it on the couch alongside Mrs. Duty, who tried out Cyberpunk herself for the first time. Now, as Cyberpunk is a in-depth RPG, the Claw handled it without a problem, just like in my Fallout 4 review before it. Though, unlike Fallout 4, I didn't have any teething issues where I couldn't get the creation lab to work, like I did in Fallout 4, until it randomly decided to work. Cyberpunk was a simple boot up, change the graphics from its, high or medium or whatever graphic settings you have on your PC to portable mode, and just play. Naturally, I played Cyberpunk at my pub, however, unlike other games, I kinda needed to be careful with what mission I was doing. The Pan Am mission in the tank isn't really gonna work if you're having a nice beer in a public place. But I had no issues moving from my PC to portable with your saved game data transferring over. So I'd pause a mission at home, go, you know what, I'm a bit thirsty, I'm gonna go down to the pub and have a pint, and I'd pick up exactly where I left off on the Claw. Now, as I've mentioned, my total gameplay hours for my Street Kid was about 70 hours, and 8 of these were on the Claw. Split between playing at the pub, yes, but also on the train to work. But what also worked or came in handy was playing on the couch next to Mrs. Duty, who currently has a gaming challenge herself, where she needs to finish a RPG this year, and one of those games that she tried out to see if it was her jam was Cyberpunk. So sitting next to her on the couch while I was playing my own playthrough worked. And what also worked is the controller layout on the Claw is exactly the same as if you're playing on an Xbox. So if she didn't know what button to press, I could test out and check the buttons on the Claw next to her. Let's talk more about the stats on the MSI Claw 8 AI Plus, shall we? Because I was getting about a maximum of 40 frames per second, which isn't too bad when you're playing a game so graphically intense like this. Speaking of graphics, Cyberpunk still looks good on the claw. I didn't really have many issues with actually playing it out on the go. It was a simple boot up, play the game, the controls are the same as they are on the Xbox. The only issue some of you may have if you're used to playing on a PC is moving to a controller. It might feel a bit alien. However, driving is easier on the claw compared to, say, a mouse and keyboard. The only other thing I can really think of is that if you're looking at this footage here and it seems a bit jittery when you are capturing and recording footage on the MSI claw, the game does drop to around about 25 frames per second. If you do have your claw plugged in while sort of charging it, because, you know, the battery will drain after a while if you're playing Cyberpunk, but if the charger is plugged in, the frame rate will boost a little bit, but if you are actually capturing and recording footage on the claw to use in a video, for example, the frame rate will dip a little bit. I did notice as soon as I stopped recording the screen, the frame rate went back up to that sort of like 35, near 40 mark. However, with some tweaking with the resolution and the XeSS2 frame generation, you might be able to clear over above the sort of 40 frame mark that I got, but I honestly didn't fiddle with the settings too much. I sort of just went into the portable or the Steam Deck mode, as the graphic setting calls it, and it just kind of worked for me. But by fiddling further with the settings, you actually might get some better performance than I did. But I honestly kind of expected to have some more issues while running this intensive game on PC on the MSI claw, and honestly, no complaints. I had no gameplay bugs, no graphical bugs, where I originally thought this mist or fog around the map was the game trying to lower its graphics and settings for playing on the go, like the hardware limitations I think it was for Superman 64 and how Metropolis had that fog around the world, but no, this was a bug in the PC version of the game too. For context, for my previous videos, the Creation Lab didn't work properly for Fallout 4 until it randomly did. And for something like Marvel Rivals, I think I had to play with the settings for a good 20 to 30 minutes for it to be running correctly and smoothly, but for here, Cyberpunk, I just went into the graphics preset, changed it to portable, and I was ready to go. But if you're wanting to play Cyberpunk out on the go, or other games from your Steam library out on the go, and you're looking at getting yourself a portable gaming unit, I'll chuck a link to the MSI Claw 8 AI Plus down in the description below for you to check out if you're interested. But the team at CD Projekt Red gave us a properly chunky DLC in Cyberpunk with Phantom Liberty. Now, the base game story deals with V finding a cure, mega corporations, Night City. Phantom Liberty gives you a story that, while yes, its core motivation for V to actually partake in the plot points is to find a cure for the virus that's killing him, it has nothing to do with Arasaka, Night City, corporations. Rather, it's focusing on the government, secret sleeper agents, and a section of Night City that is closed off and police won't even enter. Phantom Liberty's story starts off after you've made it through a portion of Act 2 with the main plot point of the Voodoo Boys gang, where V gets a call from a netrunner known as Songbird, who needs your help and offers you a cure, and we're told to meet at the entrance of Dogtown just outside a massive football stadium. The netrunner is on what is, in this universe, as Air Force One in Space Force One, and the president of the new United States is on board and projected to crash in Dogtown. You're contracted to then save the president before she crashes in Dogtown, which kind of feels like Escape from New York, as it's separated from the rest of Night City, and there is a military gang that controls and runs Dogtown. Naturally, the president doesn't want to be captured. It's Escape from New York, basically. That's what it is. The story starts hard and works really damn well for going into action moments, then into a bit of stealth, but you can go loud if you don't want to go into stealth. But the story shifts and changes from saving the president to finding and saving the netrunner Songbird, who, as she's helping you and the president escape this militia that's chasing you down, she hacks into and temporarily controls a prototype spider tank before losing control of it, and then you can't reach her on communications at all. The president then asks you to activate a sleeper agent in Idris fucking Elba as Solomon Reed to help find and track down Songbird.
7 fucking years in this shithole, 'cause of you, Solomon Reed.
I am aware of the effect I have on women.
Now, without going into spoilers, in the events of Phantom Liberty, there are fantastic moments where you'll have heavily inspired James Bond moments, from casinos pretending to be guests to gain information on key targets, to even moments toward the end of the story that felt like they were ripped out of Alien Isolation or Resident Evil games, and I'll get more to that in the spoiler section. But this new DLC doesn't just give you new story elements to follow, that's about 15 to 20 hours of proper content, but we also get a new skill tree with new abilities thanks to Songbird in the Relic skill tree, where our 4-arm grenade launcher, for example, can be charged and fire multiple rounds. Or you can have your optics highlight weak points on enemies, which is pretty damn cool, and it's nothing too over the top, they're just cool skills and abilities that they've added into the game. Now, the DLC, you're required to complete the Voodoo Boys mission in the area of Night City, known as Pacifica, but the great thing is, if you make a new character because you want to play the DLC, you can play the DLC straight away and opt to skip straight into Phantom Liberty with your character starting at level 15. And I kinda gotta say, that's a pretty smart idea, because while Act 1 is great, it is a bit slow because it's world building. Now, being a new DLC too, there are different weapons that you'll get in the main story. When the character Alex is introduced, you get her silence pistol, Her Majesty, and the only thing I could think of when I saw and was given this weapon was Solid Snake's SOCOM from Metal Gear Solid 1. There's also new clothing options that will give you additional stats, like wearing body armor will increase your overall armor levels. Wearing Netrunner helmets, for some reason, reminded me of the Maker outfit from Mr. Fantastic. It will give you quicker upload speeds for when you're hacking into enemies. Now, my main problem, it isn't really a spoiler for Phantom Liberty, it's just that the story starts and you get right into the secret agent government style of DLC, but you're forced to do not one, but 3 side missions in order to progress. Now, I don't mind side missions, it gives you sort of a breather and a chance to get away from the main story, it can set up new characters and such, but you're forced to do 3 side missions and it just kind of felt like padding out the DLC. Now sure, they don't take too long to do, as they're just small side gigs like, say, saving 2 cops who are locked down inside of a police station, but it felt out of place for doing side missions in order to progress the main story, especially when the main story sort of has a bit of a time-sensitive nature about it. The overall DLC, though, is fantastic, and I won't go into the ending just yet, but the first credit roll I had with Phantom Liberty left me feeling so depressed and second-guessing the decisions I made. I decided to boot up older saves and make different options. That is half the reason why this video took so long to make, really. Speaking of Phantom Liberty and rolling credits, I just wanted to take a moment to praise the theme for the credits of Phantom Liberty. It's totally got a James Bond song vibe to it, and I honestly had it added straight to my Spotify playlist as soon as I found it. It also had me wondering, who's going to do the Bond song for the new James Bond First Light game? Now, it's worth noting, I'm about to go into spoilers with some general positives, negatives that I've got with Cyberpunk. If you don't want to have any story elements spoiled, head over to the timestamp on screen now. Alright, well, first thing to talk about is the intro and Act 1 of Cyberpunk with Jackie and Johnny Silverhands. Firstly, the death of Jackie after the heist is something that I don't think anyone will get over. In all my playthroughs, I've tried to spend as much time as I can with Jackie, and for this playthrough, I tried treating and talking to him like shit. And when Jackie bites the bullet, it still hits you, as the player, in the gut. What I tried to do was picking dialogue options where I would act as if I don't like Jackie, and where we're constantly arguing, and Jackie's reactions and how he spoke back to me was like 2 mates having a disagreement, and it didn't feel out of place. I did find it a bit weird that in the game, when using health kits and inhalers to keep our health topped up, and we can install blood pumps to keep ourselves alive, but Jackie goes down from a bullet to the gut. Now, it might have been, say, more impactful if Atom Smasher gets a critical hit on Jackie when we're trying to escape in the Delmain cab, a cab 2 that has weapon storage but doesn't have any medical supplies. Bit weird, but the scene with Jackie still hits hard. Same with his funeral too, to see how his mother reacts, how his friends like Victor and patrons at the bar talk at his funeral, or his love interest Misty. And seeing Misty at the end of one of my playthroughs in Jackie's jacket was a really nice touch. Now, the virus that ends up killing us is the relic that we're stealing in the heist of Act 1, and it's Keanu Reeves' Johnny Silverhands, and after we got shot and presumably killed after the heist by Dexter Deshawn, the relic keeps us alive and slowly takes over our body, killing us and putting Johnny behind the wheel, so to speak. And Johnny works as a great character both from an acting perspective, but also to check in with us with what our options are, with what we're doing, how we're playing Cyberpunk. He sort of keeps us in check.
Only too willing to spread their legs for you. Sad.
Go eat a dick, Johnny.
Towards the start of Phantom Liberty, I decided to take the pledge and work with the president, and Johnny didn't sit by quietly during this moment. He points out things that you as the player might not have noticed, call you out if you're acting too corporate. Compare Johnny Silverhands to the Joker in Arkham Knight. It's probably the best connection that I can make. He appears, he gives you some great dialogue, and when you look away, he disappears. But as the relic is slowly killing you, and Johnny is taking control of your body, you'll have moments where you'll experience Johnny's memories, and you'll use his dope pistol. You blow up Arasaka, you're introduced to Alt, and it gives more to Johnny's character and backstory. Now don't get me wrong, his character, his motivations, his history with other characters like Rogue and Atom Smasher and his bandmates from Samurai are great, but what I found a little bit weird was the option to choose dialogue when you're reliving his memories. Because it's a memory, you shouldn't really have any dialogue choices or actions. Sure, drive to a point or shoot Arasaka guards, I've got no problem with that, but deciding what to say to Alt or Rogue felt weird here and there. There's a side mission where you give Johnny control of your body and you set up a one night only samurai reunion gig, and honestly, I fucking loved this mission. I'm a nerdy fat guy who plays guitar poorly, I'll never play on a stage in my life, but I kinda felt like a rock star during the samurai gig, and it was really cool. But as you play through the main story, companion side missions, Phantom Liberty, you can opt to connect and chat with Johnny. Disregard him or treat him like shit, and after Act 1's heist, your Repadoc mate Victor gives you news that the relic is killing you and nothing can really be done to save you, or that Victor can actually really do nothing. Jackie's girlfriend though gives you pills to take.
White wakes me up, blue calms me down, orange keeps the demons from dancing all around.
One shuts Johnny up, the other lets him take control of you, which I used at the samurai gig, so basically Johnny had control of my body, so he could actually play his last gig, and it was cool. But there's one line that completely changed the perspective of Johnny Silverhands for me. Might be again because I'm a moron, but at one point in Phantom Liberty's DLC, my V said, "Death is breathing down my neck, always," referring to how the relic is killing him, and it kind of flicked a switch in my head that Johnny Silverhands is death, in that he's the Grim Reaper. V knows the relic is killing him, and that sooner or later, Johnny will take control of his body, even against Johnny's own will, because Johnny can't stop the relic. But how you as V talk and interact with Johnny is how your V accepts death. Either with Johnny as a friend, going out in a blaze of glory by getting revenge, or by avoiding him, talking to him like shit, and in one ending of the game, I had the option to cure the relic and kill Johnny completely. Now, I mentioned a couple of moments ago about the ending I had in my playthrough with Phantom Liberty and how it made me immediately boot up old saves and make different options. And that was this ending. In Phantom Liberty's DLC, you get to a core story plot point where you can side with Idris Elba's Solomon Reed, or you can side with Songbird. Songbird knows the president and the government will continue to use her against her will, and she just wants to escape. Where Reed wants to save Songbird and get her out of Dogtown, and Reed's mission is to get Songbird back to the president. Now, in my first playthrough, I picked and sided with Reed. Songbird then gets access to an AI matrix, and she turns into a cyber psycho. And it's fucking cool and horrifying at the same time, where she fucks up anything in her path, and she gets ended up taken by MaxTech, and then we track down MaxTech and we try to save her. The game then shifts into a horror game that felt like Alien Isolation or Resident Evil, where we have to avoid this unstoppable spider bot that Songbird is controlling. Legit, I thought it was a great moment in the story. But after this horror moment with this Militech spider, you find Songbird, and you can opt to save her or you can kill her and hand her over to Reed. Once you hand Songbird alive over to the president, Reed then calls you saying they've got a cure to the relic and they have to operate on you for a month in order to cure you, but this will flat kill Johnny. There is no way to save him or the relic. Johnny naturally isn't a fan of this, but seeing as he has no option or choices really because it's your body, we go into the surgery and we wake up 2 years later. Reed can't get any updates on Songbird and the government are using what's left of her against her will. Because if we go back to the gameplay moment when I saved Songbird's life after she begs you to end it for her, she warns you that you've left her in a fate worse than death. And she's fucking right.
But wait! There's more!
Worse still, following your surgery, your body can't handle any implants, so you can't hack into items, you can't heal yourself, you can't use weapons or anything. All of your friends have tried calling and getting in contact with you for 2 years, and naturally, you've not responded to them. In my playthrough, I was in a relationship with Pan Am. It was completely gone by the time I woke up. You go back to Night City, and the city is completely different, and you can't even stand up against 2 simple street thugs. This ends with V walking away and blending into a crowd of NPCs, and that's it. We get offered a desk job with Solomon Reed simply because Reed feels bad for what happened to you and Songbird. Rogue tells you basically not to come around to the afterlife because you as V, as a legend, you're known, but if you turn up at afterlife, you'll ruin your own reputation. The Nomads flat tell you, do not call Pan Am, she's not taking you, ghosting her for 2 years well. We don't get revenge and take out Atom Smasher. There's no need to wrap up the Arasaka story because we were working with Arasaka to get a cure for the relic, but this ending disregards all of the work you've just done for the core story of the game. 70 plus hours of character development, skills, relationships, companions, all of it gone for V to be free of the relic and be a nobody. Where other endings have V go out in a blaze of glory, giving yourself to Johnny or even ending it on your own terms. This ending legit had you fade away into nothing. When the credits rolled from this ending, I was just so shook to my core. I regretted all the choices I made in Phantom Liberty, and I couldn't have V or Songbird end up like this. I couldn't let Songbird be handed to the president, so I booted up an old save and decided to mercy kill her, and Reed and the president obviously weren't a fan of this. So when we got to the ending, there was no cure, it was more so a fuck off and thanks for nothing from the president, but I felt better with my choice of not handing over Songbird alive. Until then, I booted up an older save and decided to side with Songbird over Reed to see how that works out. But after I rolled credits on Phantom Liberty, I did some smaller side missions here and there, both in Night City and around Dogtown, and I had a couple of endings to wrap up and retire this V. The first ending I went with was ending things on my own term. No storming into Arasaka, no revenge against Atom Smasher. Sitting on the rooftop and calling it quits. Now when I first saw this ending when Cyberpunk initially released, it felt kind of bland. It felt like a cop-out. But now with Phantom Liberty and everything my V has done up until that point in looking for a cure to the relic that's killing him, with Songbird, with Reed seeing friends die, the ending actually kinda worked for me. The credits rolled and everyone reacts to V ending his story on his own terms, and it's also kinda brutal. Everyone is upset. And Pan Am is legit pissed, and I kinda laughed at this because she goes on about everything she's done for me.
And after everything I did for you, everything!
But he didn't do anything.
Didn't he, Lisa? Didn't he?
I'm sorry, all of her story progression were results due to my actions. What has Pan Am done?
Hey, wait a minute. He didn't!
But anyways, I decided to boot up an old save again and decided not to choose the Arasaka ending or the Pan Am ending, and went with the idea or option of Johnny taking control of my body, taking the driver's wheel behind me, teaming up with Rogue, and storming into Arasaka to get to this Mikoshi and save V from the relic. And I've never seen this ending or mission before. It's actually pretty damn great. You end up crashing into Arasaka's forest portion of their office, which Yeah, bit weird that a commercial office has a forest floor, but it is fucking dope. And there's a cool moment where you can actually hack into a terminal, turn off the lights in the forest, and fucking blast Samurai through the speakers, which was a great touch.
You and your fucking ego.
We face off against Atom Smasher, Rogue gets taken out, and killing Atom Smasher using Rogue's pistol, really damn satisfying. But after all this, we find that there is no cure, and V has 6 months to live. We can either decide for Johnny to take permanent control of your body, or you as V make the most of the time you've got left. Now I ran both options, and V became the new manager of the Afterlife, taking Rogue's place, taking on some high profile jobs, and it ends the story with V in space making his way to a orbiting casino space station in another hope of finding a cure. Or as Johnny, you can take control of V, and the story wraps up with Johnny in V's body, helping a kid who's your neighbor, teach him about music, getting ready to leave Night City and start a new life. You say goodbye to Rogue and V in a cemetery, which, just quickly, the cemetery is a really nice final moment for V's story. There are memorial plaques to Evelyn Parker, for Jackie, even characters from the Netflix Edgerunner story. The overall then story wraps up with Johnny controlling V's body, which it's now just Johnny, but Johnny getting on a bus and leaving Night City for good. And all of these endings legit worked for me to wrap up my time with Cyberpunk. Ending it on my own terms on the roof with no crazy gun blazing mission felt like V had tried everything and there was no cure. He saw friends die, he saw friends move away. Both V and Johnny went out in their own way. V becoming the new manager and head of the Afterlife and becoming a legend of Night City was also really damn cool, and Jackie finally had a drink named after him, which was a great touch. And it felt like V's story kept going with the space mission job and that there might be a cure there, but it also, the playing the samurai song of Never Fade Away was a great way to just, to turn the screen off. That's where it stops, a bit of a Sopranos style ending. And Johnny leaving Night City is a nice farewell to the story and your character. Phantom Liberty's ending had me regret my decisions. I felt super bummed. Don't get me wrong, it's a good ending, but it'll have you boot up an old save and you'll just keep playing. But the original non-DLC endings felt more suitable, at least to me. But naturally, over my time with my playthrough, I wrote down a heap of notes, some missed opportunities maybe, I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, but when we first are introduced to Songbird, she basically turns Johnny off in that his imaging and his voice don't appear until later in the story. And it's kind of cool too, as Songbird's hologram is in your head and she can see Johnny and Johnny can see her, and he's super surprised by this. And it could have been cool if we saw Johnny and Songbird interact and maybe argue with each other throughout the story. Now, just like Johnny, Songbird can talk to us at any time. She even appears as a holograph in our heads during certain missions, and she's even standing right in front of us. She can appear as a hologram. It's really cool. And it would have been dope to have moments where Alex or Reed or the President are arguing, and then Songbird and Johnny appear and provide their thoughts. It's worth noting too, to more so enjoy and experience Phantom Liberty, a mate of mine recommended playing the core game until you get to the point of no return mission. Do a heap of side missions, companion missions, do as much as you can before you start Phantom Liberty's story, as the core story is you're chasing down the creator of the relic to find a cure. You're chasing down other ways to get a cure. So by the time none of these leads work out, you can then have Songbird appear and offer another cure, and it works out better this way. Hell, there is a side mission, or there's a side character of Lizzie Wizzy, who's a musician that I helped out from a random side mission for a bit of fun, who then turns up in Phantom Liberty's DLC to perform a musical number at the casino mission, and she gifts you her headdress that she wears during this performance because you and her character have a bit of a connection already. You're already mates with her, and that was a kind of a cool connection.
We lost everything!
But well, this is getting to be a pretty long video, but after 5 years, how is Cyberpunk 2077? In short, and I don't know why I'm saying in short because I've rambled for so long, it's nothing short of spectacular. Each update, whether it's a large DLC like Phantom Liberty, or the option to change the paint on your car, or the addition of a photo mode, is pretty damn solid. While CD Projekt Red are working on The Witcher 4, it doesn't feel like they've forgotten about Night City. While it doesn't look like there's going to be more DLC like, say, Phantom Liberty added to the game, there's always something new to find in Night City, and Cyberpunk 2 is a game that gets better the more you replay it. Between my last video and now, I've gone out and bought more Lego, I've got more Warhammer, I've bought more comic books, more audiobooks, just to have a break outside of my normal job, and of course me creating videos on YouTube, and the only thing I've been able to do is play more Cyberpunk. There have been multiple nights where Mrs. Duty has asked me what my plans are, and my answer for most of those questions have been, I'm going to finish Cyberpunk's core story tonight.
Again? Should have seen that coming.
Only to get caught in side missions, companion missions, buying new cars, seeing what happens if I drive outside of the borders on the map, answering random phone calls and text messages for help, and in the case of Phantom Liberty, booting up older saves and changing the story. And I think why it took me so long to get to the end of my Street Kid story, because I didn't want the story to end. I was enjoying myself too much. I've now sadly jumped on eBay and I'm looking at Johnny Silverhand's Hot Toys. I'm looking at collector's edition statues, even put a Cyberpunk face on my Google Watch. I'm looking at seeing if there's a real place I can buy the Johnny Silverhand's guitar, so then I can play that in real life. And I'm potentially chatting to my tattoo artist mate about getting some ink. But what about you? What's my advice if you have never played Cyberpunk before and you're interested? Or maybe you tried it out on launch and you may be tempted to go back and try it out again. My 2 pieces of advice for playing Cyberpunk. A, make sure you have multiple saves, because you could be reloading from certain points to change the fate of certain companions. And B, note that Cyberpunk can take some time to get into. By the end of Act 1 and going into Act 2, Cyberpunk's hooks will be into you. It's honestly a great game to play, whether it's for the first time or replaying it while you're waiting for The Witcher 4, Grand Theft Auto 6, or for Lewis Hamilton to win his 8th World Championship.
Not bloody likely.
Just like Fallout 4, Skyrim, Oblivion, the Mass Effect trilogy before it, I think Cyberpunk has easily earned its place in one of the best RPGs of all time. But whether you visited Night City 5 years ago when Cyberpunk launched, or you think there should have been a third-person mode added to the game, always remember to play with each other and play with yourself.